Hello everybody and welcome back to Wobbleville. I'm going to do another live session for you. And I think you can, well, maybe some of you will recognize this as a Lord of the Rings figure here. It's the Easterlings. Yeah, okay. What I'm going to do now is I set this thing up. We're going to see if we can get that chat thing working, because it's been nice the last few times having that. So let's see if we can get it working again. Does mean that I have to do some password things and that sort of stuff. So we're going to set that up right over here, hopefully where you guys can see it. Now let's do the authorization here. So as I'm doing this, I may just be, heaven forbid, actually playing a game of Lord of the Rings sometime this week. And in order to do that, you kind of have to have an army. I mean, it just sort of makes sense. And that's what we're going to try and do here tonight, is actually get that army, well, at least good enough for playing here. So 1 second. There we go. So we're going to just do one more approval here. Alright, well I think we've already, I'm going to double check here. It looks like we've already got, hey Jared, and hey Rupe. Now Finland again. I know Jared's from Alaska. And hey, Paul is from the land of many wonders, Tim Tams and Aussie rules football and many other things. So this is one of the things we're going to be working on right here. And for those, I don't know if Jared, Rope, or Paul are familiar with the whole idea of Lord of the Rings. Oh, and Trevor's here. Hey, how you going? How's it going? How are you going? Well, I hope you're going just fine. And here we go. Look at this. Cavalry is interesting in Lord of the Rings because you can be shot off your horse and still survive, which is why you generally have to have, if you're going to have cataphracts like this for the Easterlings, you better have an infantry version. So we've got some more over here. Same deal. So we've got another cataphract right here, and now here's a foot-mounted version, or foot version of him, just in case he gets shot off this really nifty mount right here. Now some of these were painted. Very cool, Paul. Let's see if we've got this at the right. There we go. Look at this. There's the good chunk of the army right there. That was painted in one of my, I think it was Series 5, part of my Patreon page, my army painting series. It's 5 episodes long. We covered the basing, covered freehand, lots of gold, non-metallic, as you can probably see. Oh, First Last is in the house also. Now look at, there's the banner guy. Oh, and there's the cataphract you just saw. So, yeah, that's all part of the army painting pledge level. Oh, and look at that, it's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Now, what's going to be a little bit different about this one, I'm going to throw on my glove right here. We got some of the same Reaper paints out here. Look at the palette cam up in the left-hand corner there. But this is a little different here. We got some contrast paints that we didn't have. I mean, they didn't exist. This was months before contrast paints ever came out. Now we've got ourselves some of our usual Reaper Clear and liner paints. Gonna give this a shot though. We're gonna mix the contrast medium into those, see what happens with that. Yeah, it's interesting. Let's hear. So this is actually this is one of the old metal figures, and I'm pretty sure this is Amdur, Master of Blades, or it's the Dragon. Now maybe this is the Dragon Knight here actually. But I tried doing a little different twist on the Easterlings. There's still some red, but you see we got the blue in here. It's just like me. I don't like to just keep doing the same old thing over and over again, even though it's so-called official. See, here we got an archer. And a little Eye of Sauron on there. Now with the gold here, you can see we got this reflected light going here. There's some greens, some purples, some oranges. Some green over here. And we're going to try and work in as many of those colors as we can. And I mentioned some freehand too. Maybe we'll use a brush. Point out some real simple freehand right here. This is literally just a couple of brush strokes here. Not a huge amount of stuff. But even that little bit just makes a big old difference. Now let's get to some of our guys here, and we'll point out. Oh, this is something to. I was experimenting with mixing the Cassandora yellow along with, oh, was it the snakebite leather, and that yielded some interesting things as a starter for golds. So we're gonna give that a shot too. Hey, Bethany, she is here. I went out over sumo. You know, actually, when I used to be able to watch NHK World, I mean, sumo was a daily thing. I mean, every single day there was sumo, and it was intense. I mean, it was really intense. Okay, let's start off here with something. The horse. What do we want to do with the horse? Maybe we want to make it more of a black horse or something like that. Well, thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. That, I mean, hopefully these things they just give you some useful. That maybe there's one thing that happens here, and you say, yeah, I can use that, or holy smokes, that could make my life a whole bunch easier. What am I doing here? I'm taking Leviathan blue, some of the, I almost called it brown liner. That is the wildwood. Now let's take a little touch of our contrast medium here. We're going to thin that down just a touch, and let's hit Mr. Horse right here and see what happens. Now the blue and the brown together, the whole idea is that that will make something akin to black. If you're back into the Reaper Clear and liners, this would have been, in all likelihood, brown liner and blue liner mixed together. Because to me, that's what the Leviathan blue is essentially my blue liner, and the Wildwood is effectively my brown liner. And what I would have done is sort of a semi-glaze, like what's happening here. Now I can see he's actually walking around on one of those marble-style bases. That goes back to my original Easterling Army that I had back in the day. Oh, the Warriors of the Dead, yeah. Oh, Fruity Toots. That's a favorite of mine. Oh, and speaking of which, I've got those finally came in. Those three. Was it the king and his two standard bearers? Those finally came in. Those have been prepped. So then I've got to do some nice basing for those, and then we're going to paint those. You bet. On some of these little live sessions right here. Because love me some Army of the Dead. No doubt about that. But I think one of the persons that I may or may not be playing, they could be already using Army of the Dead. They've been working hard on theirs. So it looks like it will be time for the Easterlings. Okay. What else we got? We got a tail over here. Get the rest of this tail in. I might even grab a touch more of just the straight up wildwood here. Let's just get some variety in this. And what we'll do is, just like we've done in the past, we'll take regular paints, i.e. Reaper paints, probably some of the Pro Acryls too, and maybe even some green stuff world paints. We're going to mix those in with the contrast paints. You can use the contrast paints in a whole bunch of different ways. It's not just this way for starting out. I've used them more as, now I guess for lack of a better term, finishing glazes maybe. I've used them as substitute for the liner paints to actually just kind of paint lines. Because hey, they're thin. That's never horrible. So we're just doing a couple of quick little things here. The reins. Now we're into straight up wildwood here. Yeah, I just bought that today too. Yeah, Fruity Toots, you can guarantee that, well, anything that comes out for Army of the Dead, there's no way that escapes me. That's a must. Love my Army of the Dead. I have to figure out some way of maybe making some City of the Dead terrain. As well, we're gonna do the Rohan terrain for sure, and some kind of Osculia type terrain. Got to do that as well. Alright, I think we are set up there. Now this is going to be a little bit different here. Let's try this. This is the Flesh Tears red, and we will mix that in with a little mixture of a couple different things. We got the clear red, and then there's some of our wildwood over there. And we're just going to toss that in here, and we'll let gravity do its thing, see what happens. But boy, I was real excited when I saw those other Army of the Dead figures. Because, geez, when's the last time we had new Army of the Dead? 2004-ish, maybe? So that was really cool that happened. So this is all nothing really fancy here. We're just kind of gonna block in some of these areas like you do. Most of this is gonna be hit with a variety of that. Actually, I should probably throw sepia liner out there too now that I think about it. But that is my Reaper equivalent of the snakebite leather. I would get more snakebite leather, but I've been foiled in every attempt in getting myself some more. So the last little bit of it, I've kind of tried to conserve that. Yeah, the Flesh Tears red, and it's nice because it has actually still some bluishness to it. What was that? The Blood Angels red. It's a neat color. It has a little more orange to it. So here, I kind of deadened it even a little bit more, I guess you could say, by adding some of the wildwood in there. Basically the equivalent of taking brown liner and adding it to the clear red. And for those that already know, the Reaper clears, they're not actually clear. They're just super pigmented paint. They don't have white in them. That's why this is just so much an intense red. There's just no white in there. There's no other color in there to sort of desaturate it. In some ways, that's really what the contrast paints are. Kind of a super pigmented type thing. Which is why when you wash those on, you still get a decent punch of color, like the Achillean green. That's another one that we use a lot. I'll try and get some more contrast paint, see if they compare to some other things too that we like to use. Alright, so banner. Now, Frieza said the awesome, huge Lord of the Rings collector and painter. Oh, thanks, I really appreciate that. Now, I think you saw the Rohan series too? Because that was cool for me because I never had a Rohan army. So I was real happy about that. Really happy I had finally, at long last, a Rohan army. Now let's start to play with some things here. So this is your snakebite leather. That's your contrast snakebite leather right there. Now we're going to sneak in the Cassandora yellow over here. Now there is also, I think it's the Iandan yellow. You could do it with this too. But I had the Cassandora, and it's kind of fun because in some ways this can thin down your contrast paints a bit. So we're going to mix those two together right here. You can see how this is a little bit more on the green side. We're starting to make it a little more on the orange side here. And we get in here, and we'll start to let gravity do its thing here. So we're going to start up there, and you notice now I've got more of just straight up kind of snakebite leather here. Oh, I might even, some of the wildwood gets in there. So see how this is just changing a little bit as it goes along, instead of just, snakebite leather for everything, this entire thing. Nope. We're going back to some of the Cassandora yellow here. Just letting that, see how it kind of almost does a little light to dark fade there, just all by itself. And that's really cool that it can do that. Now we'll hit the other side here. Once again, on the upper reaches, it's more of the emphasis of the Cassandra yellow. Let's work that way down into here. And then your snakebite leather works its way into there. Let's say I do mean I have a pile of plastic, crack shame, but my Lord of the Ring, no, 11 Moomox color me flabbergasted, way beyond impressed. That's 10 more than I have. And I'm going to have to somehow scrounge up some more of those. Well, especially if you want to do that, what's that scenario in the Gondor at War book, where you've got it's at least the Rangers of Gondor, if not maybe with a few random elves in there, doing the little surprise attack on the Easterlings and Harad as they advance through that canyon there. So, okay, now we've got to decide. We have to leave some of this alone because we got to let some things dry here. So let's go off to back to our more of a yellow. Look at this. We can even take some of that clear orange. We'll throw some of that in there. It's going to make it even more of an intense orange. Now we're going to go after the helmet here on this guy. Like so. And we are going to change. We're going to change this up. That could have had shyish purple out here on the palette. Could have been all kinds of fun things. So here's the snakebite leather. And that's supposed to be purple, so we're going to leave that alone. Oh, I wanted to recreate a scene from on the huge gaming table. The table's done, the minis are not. We tend to have the opposite thing here, where I have to kind of build the terrain after the miniatures are done. Oh, how many boxes? Oh, geez. How many boxes of orcs? Yeah. I think all of us are, well, I don't know if it's guilty is the word, but we probably all have serious orc overloads. There's lots of orcs probably sitting around in everybody's boxes. We have some here too. So we're just going to let that, there. Gonna let that do its little thing over there. Now we'll hit our shield here. Like you do. Then I can actually tell what are some of the older figures that I assembled way back in the day and what are the newer ones, because the newer ones, for whatever reason, have the shield, well, it could be right side up or it could be upside down. It's one or the other. I'm not quite entirely sure which one. So there's your, see, Black Horse is starting to dry out a little bit. Let's get some of our yellow and a touch of that snakebite leather here. The other side, yeah, let's just work that in here too. I believe in the past that has been red, but I mean, heck, he's a standard bearer. He could be a little bit different too. All right, we've got horse's armor here again. Then we'll hit the ears after this dries. I can even take some of that away. And look at this. So we're painting with a little bit less of it there. Makes it lighter. Then we can go even a touch darker. So there's some of your wildwood there. And so you can even now see what we did there. We've been manipulating that contrast paint. And just give that, maybe give it a try once in a while. It doesn't have to be a huge area or any area of significance. Just give that a shot, maybe. So we're going to go back with some gold again. Oh boy, here. You know what? We're just going to grab some of this clear purple. We're going to do a little bit of contrast medium in here. Let's see if we can make a contrast paint out of the Reaper Clay. Yeah, look at that. Now, if I just mixed water in with that, I'd be getting a different result right there. So that's, I haven't really had a chance to fool around with that very much because it's only recently that I had some of the contrast medium to play with. So that's kind of cool. All right, so note to self, the clears can be used that way. And we're going to just fill in a little bit here with some of our snakebite leather. Where are we at here? We got some armor on his chest that you pretty much can barely see because it's behind the shield. And now that I've actually started to get some color on this, I'm going to brighten this up a little bit, so bear with me as we brighten that up just a touch. Oh, Jared says I got that. Oh, I got to catch some of that along. I always got to work at 8. Yeah, well, I understand. Be sure to get yourself some sleep. There's a part of me that wishes I could be sleeping right now because we had an Adepticon meeting, which means for me insanely early wake-up calls. So cheers, and well, you'll know you can catch this, the whole thing in its entirety, as many times as needed. We'll just go in with our, even let's try some of this purple here, some of our new purple, clear purple contrast paint that we just created. But thanks for joining in, Jared. All right, let's play with some of this over here. Now let's do an even more intense mix here. Let's get a little more of the contrast medium in there. I'm just curious. I want to see what the heck happens with it. Oh yeah, so that's pretty nifty. Again, just never had a chance to play with it before, so that's fun. Now, do I have those? I've got some other things that I'm going to be playing with. I got some golden acrylic, some new fluorescents that I'm going to be playing with in a bit. Actually, I wish I had those handier right now. I'd try them even here with my golds and see what happens. But here, there's a little more of that. Let's just take the purple and the snakebite leather-ish Cassandora yellow and mix them together. Because the idea, what we are trying to get to, something along these lines right here. You can see we got the basic colors kind of set up here. And then, you can take it a little bit further here. Obviously started to do a little bit more with the highlights and such. But you have to start out with some kind of a base here, and for sure we want to just get rid of that primer. I want that primer all gone. Here, let's hit the rest of this as quick as we can. Once again, to just kill off that primer, which was the usual Badger Stynylrez. Yes, there was a little bit of, what would you say? I know everybody uses the Zenithal expression all the time. I mean, we're just fine. We can just call it that. I really don't care one way or the other. Now, there's this side. We'll just actually hit it with our crazy little purple contrast paint that we made. Maybe even just I'm going to take some Cassandora yellow there and just throw it right in with that. What the heck? Who cares? Now, I believe we were doing yep, that's supposed to be red. So we'll grab some of our little red mix here and throw that in there. And we've got to make up a color for the boots, which I'm just going to say something along the lines of maybe a reddish brown. So what we'll do, we got this red here. Well, we got brown, we have red. We can make a reddish brown. Throw a touch of purple in there. Time for boots, which will probably, just with the way everything is wet here, it'll just look like the horse color, but not really the horse color. Alright, we got a glove over here that needs to be hit. Let's get a little bit more of the red there. Back to my purple here. So it's always really messy at these early stages. That is sometimes the hardest hurdle for people to overcome with this, is that they see it and it just looks all super messy and they think, my goodness, that's what he's doing. And then a lot of times they'll come back way later and go, oh wow, look at that. It's the same exact miniature. It's just, well, now there's been some time to get in and work on some of the details and hash some things out. And of course, it just looks very, very different. Now, speaking of purple here, we're just gonna slam in some purple on this, and that just about kills the last of the primer. And if he goes off screen, I apologize, but you got this, you have a cavalry figure plus banner, so that can equal sometimes a little journey off camera. And sometimes there's things you just can't see, like what I just did there, just to make sure there's some dark in that. This is the clear phthalo blue. We're going to mix that with a little bit of the Leviathan blue there. Now that some of our golds have dried a bit. Trevor's asking if the brightness is turned down. Actually, no. The brightness is now, it's at its normal level. It's just everything on the miniature is that much darker. I can shoot the brightness up just a bit if that helps. So I just did that. So now we're adding a little bit more in the way of darks here on our blue. Let's see, we need any up here? Yeah, let's just go in there. And there we have it. So now let's maybe play with one of these other guys. Here, just, again, you can see how much lighter we go with the blue. So that's, let's compare these guys so you can see how much darker one is than the other. Now what I also want to do is there. Fruity Toots is working on some first edition Malifaux. Wow, that means metal figures, I would think. Yeah, that's going in the Wayback Machine there. So let's see, what do we want to do? We want this to be more of a black horse. And what I'm going to actually do here is mix some darker gray. So I just took a little bit of off-white. It's the maggot white from Reaper. It's basically just a bluish white. We'll work that in here. Because what maybe we'll do is a little bit of wet into wet on our horsey here. If we can just get this on here real quick. Really quick, get that area covered up. So we can go take a little bit more of this. Now it's just a scotch lighter. And the other thing too is because we're using the contrast stuff and it's sort of wet, you're getting a lot of reflections and stuff off of shiny things. And that always does some wacky stuff. Here, let's get a little bit of that up into the face here. And even a little bit into a little bit of that in some of the golds here. Where are we at? Even up here, hit that a bit. Even into here. I'm just gonna get some water there. Just quick turn that into a quick little glaze like so. Tail time, that should probably just be even. A little bit darker there. Now, I think some of the armor has dried a little more, and this is where we can start to play around even some more. I've got actually some of that reddish brown mixture here. I've got my purple here. Let's grab a little more of that contrast medium there. Just get down into here. That needs a little bit of shadow there. Same thing here with this part of the helmet. If you want to have light, you got to have dark. The best kind of malifaux. Oh, well, thanks, Trevor. Yeah, it is. It can be weird with the camera things because now there are times where well, I set things a little bit darker at the beginning, and then sort of forget to turn them back up again. And I look over and I said, well, that's looking a whole lot darker than it actually is. There we go. All right. We will let those things dry just a touch. What we'll do is we'll play around with our blues now. So it's that same maggot white. We're going to start to mix it in with some of our blue here and start to work things a little bit lighter. You can see I've got myself a whole bunch of different colors here that I can draw from now. But the nifty thing, since there's some contrast paint in this, it's semi-translucent. It's almost like we're doing a glaze, but it's not the watery type of glaze. That's why I just started calling it dry glaze. There, we'll just start to work some of our nifty little blue into some of these areas here on the trousers and such. On the other side of this banner piece. But as I always mentioned during the army painting series, we know there's going to be some freehand going up there. We know there's going to be some freehand going here. So we don't really get too crazy about everything being the super duper 100% smooth blend, because it's just going to get covered. You won't be able to see it. It won't be there. And we'll just work in, again, some more of our blues there. Let's solidify the purples here. So we are going to take, again, our maggot white, mix it in with that. I need a touch of this blue here because I don't want that purple to be too reddish. And I realize this is not official. Well, there's really no official color schemes for Easterlings, but what was seen in the movies. I think the other reason why I went with a little bit of the purple here is because I had my Candish allies with these dudes, and that was a nice way to tie them together. Speaking of purple's going to start working its way into my golds immediately here, because I love purples and greens in my golds. And the folks that have seen me working the gold videos over and over, they know just how much I love to have green and purple in my golds. So we're going to put that in over here. Okay, good. I think you can see what's happening here. Just like that. Here, let's get a little bit of that into here. And this is, it's actually a very light purple that's here. It doesn't necessarily have to be darker. Yeah, just work that in because the eye is not going to go in there and say, oh, yeah, there's purple in there. The eye is just going to see all kinds of nifty color transitions. That's what it's going to see. So we're just, like I said, trying to work a few little quick transitions here. We'll be coming back later with these. I'm going to sneak some of that purple into here now again. And here on the banner. Again, sorry if it goes off camera because, well, as you can imagine, it's hard to keep track of it all at once. Now, we've been doing plenty of stuff with everything else. Let's start to do something with our golds that's not all just transparent. So see what we're going to do? We're starting to mix some more opaque stuff in with the contrast paints there. It's that same concept of semi-translucency. And if it ever gets too intense, I take some of the purple there, we calm that down, and all of a sudden we haven't messed with the lightness of it, we've just changed the intensity of it. And we just toned it down a little bit with that ever so slight touch of purple there. And you can see how far we can go to continue on towards, well, yellow. And look at this, we're barely at orange yet. Barely at orange. Here, we'll do the same thing with our purple that's over here. See how we're actually doing a little bit of wet blending here now. We're just having some fun. Didn't take long to go from the mayhem stage to, well, a little less mayhem. We'll just call it that. Oh, here, let me... Boulder Shoulders asks, are you on Twitch too? I haven't done the Twitch thing yet, but just a couple of reasons. First of all, I spend pretty much most of every single month just making all of the Patreon videos for YouTube. And what I try and do a couple times a week is do these live sessions like this to supplement it. Because each video that I do, you're looking at about 9 hours between the filming, the editing, the rendering, the uploading, and it just doesn't leave Twitch time. I might still try that. I think what basically the Patreon page would really have to take off, and maybe wouldn't have to do as many commission things, and then I could do more Twitch stuff. Now look at this. Look at how different that is. So the clear yellow, this is the interesting thing. This is where it is sort of clear. Here, watch this. See, as I fan this out here, it doesn't wipe out everything that's underneath there. It's super intensely pigmented, but it is not. Look at this. Over here, same thing. That's not a dry brush. I'm just scumbling that across that banner right there. When I flip this over to the other side, you'll pretty much see the big old difference there. I do actually have a Twitch account, and I believe have some followers. I just haven't had a chance to mess around with that. Like I said, it's not that I won't ever do it, but for now, the YouTube thing I can just do. I can wreak more havoc on here for right now. So we're just working with our yellow, but then not gonna forget about my orange that's over here. And just long, broad strokes. Over here on our little decoration on this. Ah, good. Okay, you can see it now. We need to get lighter there. Now here's the Here's where you can see what we got over here on this side versus on this side. Here, let's lighten up some other areas on this before we turn around to the other side. Oh, social media don't have enough recognition. That's the only thing. Well, now I do the Facebook thing. I've got the blog, the Twitch thing. There's other concerns like, well, they take half of whatever money that you make, and it's great to have a lot of followers on Twitch and stuff, but there's things that YouTube lets me do that I just can't quite do there. Yeah, I would definitely love uh, the nice big old following that some of those folks get. Now, some of them have also been doing the Twitch things for many years. I basically really only started working on my YouTube channel a year and a half ago, tops. There are 5,400 subscribers, somewhere around there. That was the other thing too. Is this a wait a second? I've spent this much time building up the subscribers on the YouTube channel. Do I want to also now repeat that process once again on a whole new platform? Oh, thanks. Thanks. Thanks, Fruity Toots. I appreciate that. It can be a little bewildering sometimes. You see folks and it's, wait a minute, that thing's got a bazillion views like in a couple of hours. And is there how much instructional value is there, I guess? Because maybe that's part of it too, is that my stuff is more focused on actual. It's really focused on teaching. I mean, I'm trying to, I don't know, squeeze in a lesson with every video, and maybe, well, not everybody likes school. Maybe for some folks it's just too intense of a lesson for them. I don't know. There'll be more kind of when we start doing battle reports and such. Hopefully, Kathy and I. Oh, that's another thing. Now I have to get another computer to be able to do this. We have one of our older machines. Maybe that we can get that fixed and modernized. But Kathy and I both want to try and have that evening with the Wapples there, where we're both painting. And that would be a little more informal. Whereas this, I mean, you can obviously see what we're trying to do here. We're trying to, well, get this get this army finished. Yeah, it's definitely. Well, I love the fact that you say it's crazy good. I always call it just subversive, because it is not the way everybody else works. It's actually not the way pretty much anybody else works, like you just said. It is definitely not standard, and I don't know, maybe that's part of it too. I mean, we did the contest painting thing for years. I mean, we've got a shelf full of golden demons and crystal brushes. And well, best painted armies and all that other kind of stuff. We did all that. We didn't realize we needed to just keep perpetually doing that all the time. So just some orange there. So working in that clear yellow. Working that in, and this starts to that just starts to emerge there. But this notion of you're sort of working the whole thing equally. So grab a little bit more of the purple there. Hopefully it gets see a little bit of grayishness, a little bit of green. Well, I appreciate that. That is because I know some folks when they see it in person and they're used to the very, I don't know, do you call it traditional approach? But the conventional wisdom, that's it. When they're very much into that conventional wisdom and they say, well, you're going to do this, right? And I say, nope. And they say, well, now you're going to do this, right? Nope, we're not doing that either. And they get really quizzical when you're not following standard procedure. But even you see that little bit of purple there, let's start to already work in a little green. So there's some of that blue, right? Let's take some of this and let's play around with some there. A little bit of green right into there and there and here into some of these shadow areas. This is the sort of thing that, like see right there how we incorporated that green right into the end of that. That's just not something that people talk about, at least not at this stage. I don't know, they glaze that in or do something. To me, why not just start to put it in right away? And speaking of which, we're going to throw some green into here. Remember, I like my green and my purple together, so that's what we're trying to do here. Trying to get that green and purple working together to make gold. How crazy is that? It's even crazier when, and this the people that know me are saying, well, wait a second. You're always talking about green and purple to make those nifty grays, not golds. What's up with that? Yeah, that's that's me being sneaky. Just being sneaky. Using something for gray to enhance gold. Let's go with some of that nifty little purple there. And I'm just going to work in a touch of shadow there. Gonna see if we can't throw in a little bit of a, just trying to do a little glaze on the horse's armor in that one spot. See, look here, a glaze is just fine, and that's just water, nothing fancy there at all. I could call it the sheep approach. They paint like one another. Oh, they have the lemmings, the sheep. Yeah, that's, geez. How many years of 2D art? 20 years of oils and watercolors and pastels and everything else. And, well, those principles are always applied to every single miniature that I do. That's just kind of how it is. That makes sense, that's for sure. A lot of new paints be themselves. Always have a mentor, do your own thing, and well, that happened too when I was in art school. I ended up combining all the stuff that different teachers had different ideas, different methods and principles, and I just called them, technique golems or paint golems or something like that, where you're just taking all these different ideas from different teachers, whatever, and then you sort of recombine them in your own way. Here's some purple. Again, taking some purple here, mixing that in. Now let's start to mess with the red here a little bit because we haven't it yet. So there's some of the clear red in with our little contrast paint mix that we did here. The other thing I was tempted to do is actually in some of these areas that are red here, throw some sort of little crazy freehandy type things in there. We might do that. It all depends. Here, let's hit some red over here too while we're at it. And then we'll flip this guy over. Now let's go this way. So again, the clear red, we're mixing it in with our, what was that, the Flesh Tears red and touch of the Wildwood. I always try to sort of build this evenly. So I can't just keep messing around with that yellow, because if I do, eventually it's just going to get too light for what's around it. I got to do something with the red. See, how light is that supposed to be? It's also, it becomes a issue of speed, timing, whatever, because when you just select that little dot of red that I had there, well, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go down here and hit that too, the gem or whatever that is over there. Just hit that. Now with the reds, to make those lighter, you really want to stay away from white. I know I say that all the time. You gotta lean more towards oranges, yellows, whatever. You can also highlight your red with, well, essentially greens. Yeah, that is possible. So what we'll do is we'll mess around with the reds here a little bit more. Then I've got to get into actually things like the blue, maybe even the horse. Let's hit the rest of our banner here and just sort of call that. Let's mess around with a little bit more of the red on this part of the banner here. When I see people, geez. Oh, let's see. Oh, Ryan, how's it going? Hey, Ryan. Yes, you keep your paints quite thick, even on the wet palette. It's what they look pretty thick. But that's the interesting thing about the clear paints is it looks like a big old blob here like that, but because it is pretty much just straight up pigment, it doesn't leave any kind of thickness behind. It's pretty neat. I guess that's why I've always liked these. Now I know they're not, and Bethany definitely can echo this, and all of our Australian friends, they can be a little tough to get outside the US. That's for sure. So that's why I started messing around with the contrast paints. And oh, actually, speaking of paints, 50 new Green Stuff World paints showed up the other day. So I'm trying to set up some things here. So yeah, there's 50 of these showed up. So we'll be doing whatever we can do with all those. I had to kind of organize those and spread those around. There's just so many of them. Here, let's work in our red on this side too. But then sometimes the paint's really thin. I suppose that's why I like messing around with the oils. And that's something, another thing I got to get back to. Well, the Ossiarchs, those are supposed to be here sometime in the next week. I'll start prepping those. And I really wanted to play around with oils on those Ossiarchs. I thought that could be really, really interesting. So yeah, that's a fun. Most will be either Army Painter series or some sort of Patreon content there. And see, that's going right over there in the yellow letters there. You do that Army Painter pledge level, well, you get hit with, somewhere in the neighborhood of now 230 hours worth of video links, because I just started Series 15, and that's working on a Lizardman Blood Bowl team with bases made to match the actual field, which I'd never really tried something like that before. The fields that you get from GW, so that was a blast. using the Green Stuff World Aztec rollers. Well, roller, not rollers. That yielded some really nifty results. So this is, again, it's the clear yellow. Let's see now. This is a little bit on the almost like lemon yellow side here. We could even take some of the Cassandra yellow, mix that in. Now it's even more. It's almost like a bit of a glaze right here. See, I would just glaze that right over the top. And most people think of glazes as making things darker. Well, you can glaze things lighter, which we just did right there. So that is something that's definitely possible. Now, I don't want to get too focused in on golds to the detriment of other things, but there's just, well, there's a lot of golds. And I think what we're going to do now is we're going to migrate over back to blue here, because okay, so you can see how much brighter the blue is. Here, let's look at the shields there. So let's lighten up those blues. Again, that's the clear blue, the clear phthalo blue. Those are Reaper colors. Here, let me get this light out of the way. Get my palette here where I can actually reach it. You can see how I like to have just some colors out here. They're almost like they're just sort of staged on the palette here. All kinds of different colors that I can go back to if need be. Now, of course, yeah, this blue is probably going to start to blend in with my glove just a bit. I just realized that. So if it does, I apologize. But there's something else here too. Okay, we're screwing around with this blue here. It's right next to our gold. Well, how does that blue just like magically not get involved with the gold? So we have to do that here in some way, shape, or form. Let's see if I can't glaze a little blue into here. Who would have thought blue and gold? We got to do that because it's just, how can that blue be right next to gold, and gold's supposed to be the shiny thing, and yet absolutely no reflection of blue into the gold. The eye's going to see that and it's just going to go, oh, thanks, Ryan, much appreciated. Let's see, is it similar to the clears in Australia? What is similar? Let's see. Well, like I was saying a little bit earlier, the contrast paints, I got those because I thought they could be kind of the nearest equivalent, and that's, what was it, the Leviathan blue equaled the blue liner, the Wildwood equaled the brown liner, the Snakebite leather that mimicked the sepia liner, the Achillean green that actually was, that's a little bit like if you took, say, clear green and maybe the blue liner, mix those together, then you'd get something like Achillean green. That's one we've used an awful lot. I'm going to experiment with some more of those to see. Well, the flesh tear red, as you saw, that plays real nice with the clear red. That's pretty much my substitute for clear red, is the flesh tears red. Now there's the transparent paints from Proacryl. Can you guys get those down there? Oh, Fruity Tip. Well, thanks. He says check out Tabletop Empires. Oh wow! So that's where you can. Wait a minute. Did I just see a Facebook post that showed a gigantic wall of Reaper Bone stuff in that? That might be the same store. But in any case, thanks. Thanks, Fruity Toots. Much appreciated. I'll hopefully catch you on the next one later on this week. Mostly the same time, certainly the same place. And thanks for that little hint. I'm going to try and spread that word around then. So maybe folks can actually get a hold of some of this stuff. But I'll be doing, I've still got more of these to do. I'll probably use some GW paints on them. I try to rotate around. Sometimes using Reaper, sometimes using Green Stuff World. Here, let me just grab one. So these guys here from the monument, I've done a few videos with those. It was all part of, well, comparing stuff to contrast paints. And then the Green Stuff World has intensity inks. Again, another similar thing. The contrast paints or the clears and liners. So you can see how the blue starts to get a little bit lighter now. But we need to, I want to reflect some of this somehow into these golds. Let's see if we can't do that. There we go. It's ever so slight, but just a few little dots of it there. It'll make more sense in the end. Now we've got, and actually I'm going to make that, I think we're going to go blue with this. Trying to avoid a Captain America type feel here. That's why there's no white in any of this. And just switch that out from the yellow to some sort of darker blue. There we go. Now let's see what we can do with Mr. Horse here. Again, we're just trying to sort of making ourselves a gray. Let's grab a little bit of that blue in there. And let's just start to lighten up a few spots here. But if we want it to be, well, a really dark colored horse, we can't get too crazy with highlights on that. Our highlights have to be barely middle tones. Middle tones, if people haven't heard that term before, well, there's nothing fancy about it. It is just on the value scale. Let's say you go 1 to 10. Middle tones would be in that 4, 5, 6 range. That's about it, and that's it. Just think of those as that sort of intermediate, not quite dark, not quite a highlight. Somewhere in the middle. And believe it or not, that's where the vast majority of your miniature is going to land. Alright, this is another Reaper thing. It's actually, what's it called? Mint green, I think it is. Yeah. Just one that I like, and we're going to get a little bit of bluishness to our grays on the horse here. And we can always go back in and do some darker glazes on stuff. We can tint things. Let's see, let's see, let's see, yeah, they stuck the main set of liners on Tabletop Empire. Okay, that is definitely good to know. Maybe I'll just try and find their site and just get the link to it, and then I can actually link that into the description here on the video, because that's the other neat thing about YouTube, is that I can put links in the descriptions for brushes or whatever special thing I might be using, and people want to know where they can get it. Here, and you can see this is barely a middle tone here. It looks really dark on the palette, but then on the miniature it starts to look light. Why? Because, well, we built up a lot of darks. That was the plan. That was definitely the plan. Paul is prepping his town for the Haggletown Hollow Kickstarter. That sound. I might have even seen that, or I might have seen that. That sounds really familiar for some reason. Well, I'm hoping this is another reason why I want to get yet another recording computer machine set up. I've got cameras now, I've got plenty of lights, I've got sound tiles, I got a whole bunch of stuff. But what I need is one more machine so that I can record the terrain tutorials. And basically, those would have to be recorded in an entirely different area of the house here, not where I'm doing this. So that would require a whole new setup in a different location, far away from all of this. But I want to make myself Rohan terrain for sure. Something very much in the line of Edoras. From there, some Osgiliath stuff, some ruins to fight in, because that's what you do. And then, who knows, maybe a little Minas Tirith also. And I can continue to say, we'll bring in a little more of our mint green here and there. And people say, wait, why are you using green to highlight horse's fur? Well, because it translates as gray. It's because of the other colors that are already in here. And it just, I don't want to say it tricks the eye, but it kind of does. In many ways, it is just fooling the eye into believing. So you're sort of manipulating the viewer a bit, making them believe what you want them to believe. Oh, look at that. That horse actually has a tongue coming out of his mouth there. That's interesting and unexpected. I don't remember the other ones being like that. Let's get ourselves... Now we have to go back more towards dark. Always have to be willing to sort of go back and forth each way. Sometimes to dark, sometimes to light. The more we set up those darks, the more... when we add those lights, the more impact those are going to have. But let's see if we can't work in some green again here. So there's the clear yellow. We're going to grab some blue here, making ourselves some green. Oh, Bethany says in Australia you can get the Reaper paints from Tabletop Empires. No, and she's been using them for 30 years. We've been using those long enough that we use as holders for our miniatures old Reaper paint jars that they stopped making, oh my gosh, must be 10 years ago. So yeah, we go back a ways with Reapers. So here's some of that green working its way into here. Works its way into here. Let's brighten that up a little bit. Let's start to some of this individual sort of reversed dragon scale armor, I guess, if you want to call it that. Because these leaves, in effect, do go the opposite way from what normal, at least I would assume what normal dragon scale armor would do. Here, let's work in a little green reflected light on our helmet there too. But now we're taking some yellow and orange. And we'll work in a few It's lighter, but it is not going to be any kind of highlight color. Here, let's make ourselves a little bit of a lighter yellow here. And we'll mess around with this a bit. What I want to do is start to mark out where a few of these lighter areas are going to be. And holding it this way just makes it easier for my hand to run along some of these little edges like that. And again, we can start to play with some of our lights up here. Right in here, just it's all set up though by what we did in those early, very early phases when it just didn't look like anything whatsoever. Like I say, you have to have that patience to sort of work past the initial, oh my gosh, it just doesn't look like anything. Here we're going to get some lights into the helmet now. It starts to change really fast. That's the thing that people get surprised quite frequently by, is that it just sort of looks like nothing, 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 and then all of a sudden, poof. I'm just going to make sure I've got decent focus on this for you here. It's a little tough because he's just so huge. With that tall banner and everything else. Here, let's get a little bit of an edge on this. There, the horse's armor. And then we've got these guys that are, we have to start working out there. How light are some of these going to be? But remember, at any moment we can go back in with some darks. Starting to pick out a few edges here. This is not the lightest light. When you got things like the clears, or the transparents, or the intensity inks, or the contrast paints, you add something that's more opaque, and that's where I've been starting to use the pro acryls a little more, because they are, they're not just super matte, but they also tend to really, really cover. So we've got this. Let's compare that to here, so you can see the difference in the two. Here, let me just play with the focus there a little bit. Now this has, believe it or not, there's actually 4 little rivets here on the corner of this. Makes it difficult. Because the old plastics here, they can be a little bit on the rougher side. That's what was pretty wild about seeing the new Army of the Dead. Because those guys, it was more like working with some of the Sigmar stuff as far as the detail went. And I can go back in here into my wash color that I had from the early portion of this. Reinforce some darks. Here, let's go even lighter here on his helmet. So some of this it'll be difficult for you to see because there's just some stuff in the way. Now let's play with a little bit of freehand real quick here. So it's just this design here. There. And I'm just going to try and stick that on here. So bear with me while I try and remember just what that pattern is supposed to be like. So we're going to take ourselves a nice sort of transparent yellow here. It looks like the design comes out like this, and it's pretty symmetrical. As I discussed in the Army painting series, I had to find something that was easy to replicate on a whole bunch of these guys and not take a really long time, and something that would translate reasonably well. That's, yeah, good. Looks like you can see that. It is definitely not the same pattern that I did on the original Army that I did way back in the day. I actually kind of liked this pattern a little bit better. It just seemed to kind of go with the design of the figures a little better. All right, and then there's a couple of vertical lines here, like this. Another one here. I do try to encourage people to get into freehand things as soon as they can in the process of painting the figures. You're just less likely to talk yourself out of doing it, because you're not going to be saying, "Oh, I don't want to ruin. I've worked on this for hours. I don't want to ruin it." Now, if you do it early enough, then you don't have to worry about ruining anything. Because if I didn't like what happened here, I could just take my blue and just wipe it out in a second. And now I can go back in and actually sort of shade parts of it a little bit, or highlight those as the case may be. And I think as I looked at some of the Easterling stuff, I noticed there were some, I don't want to call them runes, but definitely some sort of written whatever. And this is, think of it as just almost, I don't know, not cuneiform or something like that, but some form of language written on there. Now let's see if we can't get even a little lighter here. Mostly focusing on this side over here so that folks can get a good dose of not only just work in highlights, but work in some other colors. And that's what we're going to start to do here. We want to get back into that green over here. See how I just put that on the helmet right there? I know it's a little bit, it's kind of on the bright side, so we're putting some over here. We're going to get some into here again. I know it's got to seem maybe weird for folks to see this much green and purple on something that's supposed to be gold. But as I learned the hard way myself, you just keep endlessly putting just shades of yellow on something, you'll have a nicely painted Imperial Fist Easterling. Because it'll look more like a nicely shaded yellow whatever, instead of something that's gold, because, well, you can't get much more reflective than gold, and that means gold has to reflect the environment around it. And so here's where we see, at this point now, I start to feel like, yeah, I can start to work some of the lighter red colors in here. We got to do some freehand on this too. Let's get some lighter reds, and not in there. That should definitely be a shadow area, so we won't mess around with that. Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta get back up to the Johnny Allen from Wetaworks hand sculpted Hagathorn. Wow, that's gonna be. I'm gonna just have to. Well, I got some research to do now. I got some major research to do. All right, before I get too light with this red, I might want to get in there and do that, if there's that freehand there, and I am looking at this. Yeah, see that design right there? There's nothing super complicated about it. But let's get that in there before we forget. So some of our yellow here. We're going to just do a quick little simple line here, and then another one here. And it's almost like a little bit of a protractor type thing. We need one more line up here. Don't want that to be too light. And then just trying to angle this. Now you can see it. There we go. Just real quick. Nothing super fancy. Now let's find ourselves a few lights on that. And that takes care of that. So we've hit some freehand here real quick. Now let's see if we can't get some reflected light onto some stuff. And as far as, transitions go and that sort of thing, as far as smoothing things out, well, that's just, you take some extra time and you just refine things more. I could spend 10 more hours on this guy and make every single blend whatever, which there's nothing wrong with that. However, I tried to show you some of the guys that are waiting here to get painted. Well, they would be waiting a long time if I spent another 10 hours only just refining this guy. It's why are you making the army? What's its purpose? Or, well, why are you painting the figure? Is it just for a display type thing? Yeah, here I'm going to definitely try and sneak in some other colors back into this. So here's some purple. Let's do that. Just trying to hold this here so they don't actually snap him off of that horse right off the base. Gonna get some purple into this. Even into that horse's blanket. And now we've got over here, we'll lighten this up. See what we can do with his hood or his whatever this is. I almost called it a scarf. Who knows? Maybe it is. In some ways, the whole idea of the purple on this is to tie together some of the reds that are still in this, some of that Easterling red, but then sort of meld it with the blue a little bit. Let's get this. Yeah, one level lighter here. And then Let's not forget to work that purple into our golds. And even into their yellows over here. I think we need to get this lighter on this side too. No, we decided to get takeout instead, a couple days off work, so while the missus does articles for which I'll watch painting videos, well, I've certainly got plenty to watch. I try to do as many of these live sessions as I can. Like we were talking about earlier, just to augment the Patreon stuff. Because it is, at least here, there's no editing for me to do. There's no rendering to do. It's kind of like YouTube does the work. Now, granted, I can't do the little scene breaks and some of the other stuff that I do with the videos, breaking it into chapters. This is obviously a little more, I guess, chaotic, if you want to call it that, than a standard recorded video because, well, generally I'm just talking to the camera and there's no other people. But this is really neat because, well, now you can ask questions and such. That's the thing you don't get in the recorded videos. There's just no way to ask questions. And those are neat too because people can really, I think they can get something out of that. So I definitely appreciate it when people ask questions or, well, here obviously we had some folks that could say where you could get Reaper paints in Australia. Now I don't want to get too harsh of an outline here, but I do want to get a few stronger darks on some parts of that shield. It's a little hard to get some of this banner to actually just kind of show up on screen. So there's some parts of that I think I'm just going to not mess around with too much here and focus more on the things that I can actually reach easily. Let's see if we can find one more level of lightness to our blue. Oh, that's going to be too light. I can see that right away. Let's get our little tassel right here with some lighter stuff going on it here. Yeah, just a smidge more. A smidge lighter. Let's do that on this side too. We're going to have to hit the armor on that side. But for now, I'm just looking at the blues and the cloth here. And then we'll do our little freehand pattern on the other side here too of the saddle blanket. Oh heck, we're going to try and get some blue on the scale mail right here. And even on here, just reflecting that on. It's always tough because the reflections, they can't be as bright as the original color. You don't want that. But you have to do, I guess, enough of them so that they show and that they're noticeable. Yeah, just looking to do some folds here. Let's hit the trousers there, and then where's my banner here? So we've got, see that little bit of freehand to do there. It's Again, that kind of combination of circles and lines. But we're going to work in some more lighter blues around it here. I just saw that when I looked at the other banner bear. Yeah, let's real quick here, since we gotta do some freehand in other places. Let's get this going here. I think, oh, okay. Fruity Toot says chaotic. No, it's soothing to watch. Oh, well, I'm glad that it is. I know there are some folks that they will just kind of chill. They'll put these on and they will just sort of kick back and just relax and just watch watch the madness fly. So this will probably be a little bit easier to see actually the Freehand on this side. Quick little L shape here. Then our little double arch, or arc I guess I should say. A couple little lines in there. Then we sort of let that dry and we'll deal with that after we hit the freehand that's up here. So this is tricky. Bear with me here. Okay, I think this is going to be all right. So we're going to do our little, there's our round element like that. And then work in this spoke pattern like this. And then some of the lines like we had the lower section there. And then once we've got that in place, basically drawn in, now we can think about adding some lights to it. And that's going to be over here. I'm just kind of following the lights of the banner. Not going to put lights in here because that's really supposed to be sort of a shadow type thing. But speaking of lights, let's play with this a little bit. Because that's supposed to be metal. We got lots of mid-tones on there, but no lights. And we've got plenty of green in there, but maybe we're going to add us some oranges in there. Right there. Actually, I'm going to see if I can't add a little bit of that to the freehand here. And we'll get some of those letters in there, maybe some of those runic designs. We could paint some of that in there. Here, let's get even more brighter yellow here. And this is the other reason why it's just so handy to do this early in the process instead of later, because if I need to make adjustments to the freehand set, I can do that there without saying, oh my gosh, I painted all that stuff and now I ruined it with freehand. No such thing. Now we got to go back over to this side. Now that that is dry, we're going to quick do some definition on the saddle blanket here. Real quick. And then we'll work our lighter yellows into the saddle design here. I'm just going to hold him this way. Yeah, okay, you can see it. I was worried that he wasn't going to show up if I held it up this way. But when you're doing the freehand patterns like this, sometimes it's real tempting to just have those things just punch you in the face. They are just way too bright, too prominent, too whatever. And sometimes you just have to kind of tone those things down. Speaking of adding some lights to stuff, let's see if we can't now start to work in a little more lights on our armor. So we've got our blue reflected light. Now let's have this is a little bit more of a traditional kind of edge highlight there. But you notice we've waited quite a while to be fooling around with something like this. Because that's, once you start going into those really bright highlights like that, you don't have a lot of leeway now. Once you've gone as light as you can go, well, what's next? I mean, yeah, you can glaze things darker and that sort of stuff, but it's always best to kind of save that particular round of ammo for the end. Let's get the fringe up here a little lighter in some places. We also have to work on our little topper there, our banner topper. That's another precise military term for that. And I guess to keep in mind that this really is just, well, what is it now? Maybe an hour and a half tops or so. And this thing, and aside from the base being painted, that's it. So that is not, we've done a whole lot on this and not a lot of time. Al Fruity Toots has a question. What would you suggest, or how would you approach painting black on ring rates on horseback? Well, oh gosh, I don't know if you've seen not Mordor, what are they? The Morgul Knights, that's it. Yeah, the Morgul Knights, actually, those were done in oils. And oh boy, that was just so easy. But the ring rates, I've got some of those, I think, and some of them, actually, that's another batch of stuff coming. It'd be a lot like this, where I'm taking the blue and the brown, mixing them together to essentially make a black, and then lightening, darkening here and there as need be. Now here I'm trying to make myself a crazy little color here for the couple of highlights on these straps and such. There. But that's actually, yeah, I would even get greens in there. So when I can, if I have ring rates on horseback, and I think I do, well, heck, I think even Kamul, the Easterling, on horseback, I mean, he's basically the ring wraith. So we'll do him on a black horse and such. I'll probably be doing black, well, some kind of black Space Marine, whether or not it's Black Templars, Sisters of Battle are coming. Who knows, depending on how many of those I can get, maybe I'll try Sisters of Battle in different armor colors. Because why not? I mean, why not? Let's get ourselves here some of this green right into here. So just how we've been using mostly greens and purples on our golds, the black and such would be basically anything but black, because as soon as you start using those grays or mixing white and black together, What you just get is dead colors. You just get no colors. Hey, Tyler, how's it going? Oh, Mr. Interesting asks, do I ever sleep? Oof, I sure wish I did. Man, oh man. What was it? So the Adepticon meeting, this was actually supposed to happen, this live session, it's supposed to be done, well, for me, Saturday night. However, it would have ended, oh, I don't know, 3 hours before the Adepticon meeting was supposed to start. So Fruititude says them on horseback and on foot. Oh, 30th of November. That's later than I thought. I thought those were going to be, well, actually, this weekend coming up. Now, I wonder if that's, well, I guess that's worldwide. I know sometimes, like, they'll go up a few hours earlier somewhere, but, alright, so 30th of November. Good to know. Because, well, needless to say, they will certainly be the topic of Army Painting Series. And for sure, some of these live sessions here. So just like I did on this side here, see where I worked in the blue and such. Well, here it's not quite so important to work in the blue because there's not really something for it to reflect on or reflect onto it. Here, we need some greens in here too. Why else am I putting greens in it? Well, because they're a nice, well, opposite to the red. That's always good. Let's start to work in some light here on this front part of the horse's armor. Yeah, what is it now? It's 3:18 here. In a few hours, this is going to be a 24-hour day. Holy smokes. No wonder there's a little bit of fatigue taking hold here. That's what a GW rep told me, but not got to get in quick. A splash release. Now, is it going to be... I saw the picture of the... Well, I guess that's the box, but it looks like it's a penitent engine, some Arcos, some Repentia, small group of Seraphim. That's what it looked like. Now maybe that's just one box choice, because I know the Feast of Bones box, that was heftier. So let's see. Aha. Okay. Here I gotta do something. Can you see that? Yeah. And here, there's no oomph there, and we're gonna give it some. That's another highly technical painting term. So hopefully everything's going okay for you, Tyler. And I really appreciate everybody hanging around here as I work on this. This is probably one of the more important figures of what's left, is the Cataphract banner bearer. Because he's actually on horseback. He's not on foot. That foot version you saw, well, he's for the eventuality where he gets shot off of the mount. Or I think actually you can fall off of the mount too if you try and leap over something and do some equestrian type sport. And you just happen to, well, fall off the horse. Let's work in a little bit of lighter stuff there. Here. So I'm going to throw out some more of the, again, this is the Reaper clear yellow. I'll just chalk that over here real quick. So we've been using mostly the Reaper clears. Let's see, they will support the releases later. Well, yeah, they sort of, what was it with the Ossier? It was the, oh yeah, the ogres and the Osiarks together. There we go. That's a little... We need to get some lighter stuff going on here. This is a sort of a crazy shape right here. I'm just trying to work in some lighter colors here. Sort of get some of that sparkle in there that metal should have. Hopefully you can see right in here. There. And this is the point where now I start to say, can I work in a few of those brighter highlights? Maybe on the little, these 4 little rivets that are here on the shield. Let's get some on the helmet here too. And I realize some of this is going to be hard for you to see because he's tall. Now I'm going to maybe take the liberty to do a few lighter highlights also on the armor here. A few selected areas. I don't want to go too crazy everywhere. But I'm also thinking about taking some of my purple, maybe a little bit of dark here. Yeah, let's get, this certainly needs some brighter highlights in there, maybe even on our banner here. Where we did a little bit of freehand on that. Even over here on another bit of our freehand. Just to get those where the little spokes are there. And now, let's get some of this orange. Mix it with the yellow here. We're gonna lighten up some of this, some of the fringe there. Now, we've got our clear purple over here. Let's move this to the side. I'll grab some of that, again, the contrast medium. And let's reinforce a few little lines in here. So it's not black lighting or whatever the heck it's gotten that name. We're just doing a little bit of a glaze here in a few areas of this dragon scale. Or scale mail. I'm just going to call it dragon scale because, well, I believe that you can upgrade. Now, of course, this could be a new, well, I don't know. I haven't actually been able to play in almost 6 years. But I think you could upgrade the cataphracts to dragon knights. Quickest way to help oils dry. I don't actually do any kind of artificial drying of the oils. I just, since you're already thinning them down so much, in some ways I'm taking almost 60, 70, 80% of the oils out and replacing them with the white spirits. To me, that's what's going to make them dry faster. And I don't necessarily want them to dry fast. I actually count on them staying a little bit wet for a while, because basically otherwise I would just use acrylics at that point. I would just kind of stick with the acrylics, and I don't know, maybe there's some kind of, you can always throw some drying retarder in or something like that if you are really have your heart set on doing maybe some wet blending with the acrylics. Here, let's work some more green into this. So we've got our green over here, right? Let's do even more. What the heck? Here, let's get some of that yellow, some of that blue. And just want to work some. Now it's really transparent. Now part of it is just, well, using the clear paints. And then when you thin those down, you'll just get them that much more. But it's not a glaze in that sort of classic watery sense. Now we got to do something up here on the helmet. I'm going to show you this guy. So this is our sort of example cataphract right here. So we need to enhance a few of the darks and enhance some of the highlights. We got lots of mid-tones on there, but we really don't have much in the way of juicy highlights. Now it's going to be, hopefully the banner won't get in the way and sort of cast extra issues with the focus. So we throw in some lights here real quick. We're going to take some orange here. This is the clear orange. Again, just trying to make sure you can see what's going on here. These little bits of color. See, we got our greens already in there. Now let's grab some of this purple here and work that in. So we're just moving these colors around. Some greens, some purples, some oranges, and now we'll maybe just take some yellow here. Because remember, if you're only using various shades of yellow, you just quite literally will have imperial fists. That's what you'll have. And I think that's not what we want. Now let's get a highlight on this edge over here, like you do. And something in here. We need the reflected light. But see, if it's just yellow, that's just kind of blah. So this has some purple in it. Now let's do something here where we take purple and orange, and that actually makes an interesting sort of a brownish color there. That'll be a little bit of a dark that we add into this. Some here along this edge, just to show that there's actually like some trim there. Yeah, that's a little better. Now I'm going back to some orange. See that little dot right in there? Hopefully you can see what I just did there. Orange next to purple, the idea. And here, see, remember all the green that we had down here? Now a few dots of the orange there starts to make that stand out. But then, oh look, we can put that same orange over here. We can put it over here. Because we haven't even quoted the Book of Wapple at all in this whole thing. The color goes somewhere. It must go everywhere. And that's what we're doing. We're starting to put this orange in more than just the armor. We're putting it on gemstones, on the horse blanket here. It's going everywhere. Let's get some of the yellow here. You don't want that big old hair. Some of that yellow on the fringe. And maybe we can work in a slightly lighter yellow on the shield right there that has our freehand on it. Maybe, yeah, a touch lighter there on the horse's helmet. So just working in some of these bunch of these colors kind of right next to each other. It's sort of compressing it. Now that, I don't think you can even see the chest armor there. So once again, trying to do a little bit of bright highlights, kind of in the line here. Let's see if we got that line working straight down the central portion of the horse's helmet. Back into some orange here. Oh no, it's no problem. The questions are great because this way other people, they're getting actually more information because, well, I answer the questions and maybe it was a question they never would have asked, or because they weren't maybe thinking about oils. So it basically it gives them even more of a nifty little lesson out of it. So I actually love all the questions. It's fun for me too because, yeah, I can obviously keep saying what I'm doing and everything else, but it's kind of neat to actually have people asking questions because some people maybe they're a little too afraid to ask. Yeah, let's think about something we can do up here with this guy. So on the other side, we had done some things with the purple. We're going to do the same thing here. Right up in here. Get some dark in there. And here's my green over here. And look at this. I mean, this is crazy. We're just going to let those two mix together right here. We'll just do a little bit of wet blending. Speaking of oils, boy, that would just have been so easy in oils. Well, it's not like it was impossible in acrylics either, but you see what we did there? We got that, now you can see the purple here, and then it just sort of transitions into green over there. Now I'm going to get me some more. So this is actually Pro Acryl here. They're bright ivory. Remember I was talking earlier about you use things like the Pro Acryl where you need, well, lots of opacity. So that's what I'm looking for here, is something that's got some opacity to it. Because that clear yellow, like we talked about, well, it's just designed to be very transparent. Let's get a few highlights in here now in the fringe. So we're starting to get to where we were on the other side, like this. I guess it would help if it was on the screen. Just there, I can look at these, and there are some of these little fringe elements, we'll call them that are darn near green. What do we have here? We need some more. I'm going to try and get some more highlights on the armor here now that we've got our more opaque white out here. There's actually, like here on some of these parts of the horse armor, there's little dots of orange right next to little dots of blue. All kinds of crazy stuff. So now we're starting to this is where we pick out a couple of brighter highlights there. Ooh, what do we want to do? What do we want to do here? Maybe we'll lighten up our blue here a little bit on the tassel. Let's see how that works. Except not a hair sitting on the end of the brush. There we are. And a couple of more of those. Speaking of blue, now this could be an interesting little challenge here, but I'm going to see if I can't get some of that banner, the blue from the banner reflected onto here. See that right there? Maybe, yeah, now you can see it. So it's just right here. That's why I put the green there, so that I could hopefully maybe transition a little bit of that blue onto that. Now we're going to try and let's see if we can do that same exercise over here maybe. Where's my blue? There it is. So hopefully just a couple of touches of this blue right here. Not too many. And then over here, because how can this gold be right next to the blue and be completely and utterly unaffected? There, because people ask me, well, what color do I use to make gold? And so I say, well, whatever's around that gold. That's pretty much what your colors are because, well, what do we make our gold out of here? Mostly greens and purples, which is kind of the last thing anyone would expect you to do. Which is, it's very cool. Here, there's just a touch of, a few pieces of armor over here that I want to get some more color on. And now I've got this. So this is still our original little glaze color right here. We don't want that. We want that more exciting. Let's see if I can make that sort of a darker. There. Yeah. So I just threw a little shot of green on that. Because why not? I'm gonna also right here. I'm actually doing a little line of blue here against the, trying to reflect some of that shield onto there. Oh, what the heck, I'm going to throw a little bit of blue even into that helmet just because. And then more blue onto some of that armor. We need to lighten up the edge of our saddle blanket here. So here's some of our, again, the clear orange. That's one of the new Reaper clears, by the way. Kind of forgot to mention that. There. Now, the original, yeah, this is part of my army painting tutorial series. I've got the whole here. Let's I'll go back to my other scene here. So there you go. These were the guys that were painted on that original series, 5 episodes long. You can see we got a lot of golds in there. We got lots of freehands, other things. But that was how I established all of the parameters for what I'm doing now. As I basically fill out the rest of the army with more cav, more infantry. There'll be some of the special characters and heroes. Those are on the way here now. They just weren't available at the time. They took them all down. Oh, thanks a lot. I think it was the first Lord of the Rings series, because after that was Army of the Dead, and then after that was Rohan. And guess what? Harad is almost ready. All the figures are assembled. I was originally going to do sandy bases for him, but then all of a sudden Green Stuff World came out with a nifty new roller that I'm really tempted to try. Maybe we'll try both the sand and the roller to kind of get the best of both worlds. Yeah, this needs a little more. That's got to be brighter too. Here, let's do a little quick review of the freehand design here on this. So here, we have to translate this pattern here. I'm going to just have it cross over the top. these are just little marks right here. Tell me where my pattern should end. I try and get this on screen for you. And now we're going to do our little bowl shape here. Like so. There's 2 lines to that. And where's my central point is right here. Again, hoping you can see this. How many did I, okay, just a few spokes here. Like so. And then there was the couple of straight lines. And then we'll just throw in a little bit of what looks like some kind of words there. Now let's get some highlights on our metal topper here. And hopefully, oh good, I think you can see that. Let's see, can I get something on that? I don't want that to be too light. If I make it more reflective than the metals, that kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But now, this needs a little more light to it. I suppose I can even lighten up my banner here. And now the thing is, I can already tell that there's some of that Pro Acryl white mixed into my yellow here because it's not acting quite the same. It's not as translucent as it was, which is fine, no big deal. It's just something I have to be aware of. That can be the thing about using the Pro Acryl stuff. Gotta remember that you've just made it way more opaque. So yeah, I was thinking of doing the Harad in oils, but I'll probably try those in the Green Stuff World paints just to try something new, because why not? Let's get some highlights on this side here. Get it caught up to the other side. Oh, the Sauron. No, I didn't. I did the step-by-step thing on the blog, which actually that is scrolling across the bottom of the page here too. I just took you there actually that couple minutes ago when I took you to that other website. That was my blog. There's more tutorials there, but also lots of just pictures of things. So basically the same principles that I did on him, that's what I'm doing on the Necron series, which that's the other thing I'll be continuing now that we're back from all those crazy conventions. And that's taking the metallic paints and doing the object source lighting on them and all that sort of crazy stuff that you normally don't associate with metallic paints. So just like we did on the other side, adding our little areas of brightest highlights. But always have to be really judicious with that. You go too far with that too fast. I'm going to do a few, little lines on the fringe there. And I want some more of this green in here too. Let's get some of that yellow going. Get rid of some of the excess. Now I think they have now re-released the Sauron figure. I'm just going to guess at this point that he's available again. Oh, and I'm going to take some of this green now. I'm going to put it on the horsey. Because, hey, he needs some lights too. And this is kind of what I would do with the ring rates there too. And on them, I was all kinds of wild colors on them, and I mean some really wild colors. Let's turn him around and do some of these lights on him here. And I'll still probably go back in and play with some, yeah, like here. See? I don't know if you can see that. I just snuck in a little thing of that greenish color right there. Just need a drink of something here. 1 second. Otherwise, my voice is going to go, and that's never good for anybody. All right, making this a little bit even more of a highlight in a few places on the horse here. Can always take the, what is that, the blue and brown liners and mix up a glaze and darken down some areas there too. Here, let's find a few areas on the horse's face to lighten. I think this banner here needs a few touches of some light there. Now it's so the opposite of the other side where this is all just in shadow. This part here where we've got the two blades is what, the serpent blades, right? I think that is kind of how they refer to them. Yeah. While we were at Gamehole Con and staying at a friend's house, they did show me some interesting Lord of the Rings kind of research books that were done. One of them, according to, it was a lady that had, and this was years ago, had taken a lot of Tolkien's notes and everything else and made maps of things along the lines of, you know, where one language was more dominant, or the creation myths of the Lord of the Rings universe, that sort of stuff. That was pretty interesting to see that, the whole thing with Arda and the breaking of the world and how that all played out, and the lanterns initially. So that's actually some interesting background to have. Now I'm going to have to read the Ossiarch, that battle tome, that's arriving pretty soon here, and I need to read up on that so that I can get some really juicy ideas for the army painting exercise. And what I'd like to do with all of these, with my Lord of the Rings stuff, with the 40k stuff, the Sisters, the Ossiarchs, is sort of nominate some of those as basically Golden Demon projects, and then try to film that process. And I mean all the way from the concept of it all the way towards, well, you know, working our way to Adepticon next year. Which, as I said, we just had yet another staff meeting today. Oh, and for those that are going to Adepticon now, what is it, the December 6th? That is when I believe that's when all the registration stuff goes live and the web cart goes live. I am doing classes again at Adepticon. So for those that are here and watching this, listening to this, at least in the US, although I know many people that have come from Australia to Adepticon, I've got 3 classes set up. One of those is in oils. One of them is a basing class, and then another one is basically will show you how to use the metal medium and do other things like that. So for the moment at least, there's those 3 classes sort of spread out over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Actually, there might be 4. there's 3 or 4. I all of a sudden now can't remember. I'll have to look at my notes. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that Wednesday night, the GW presentation is going to be gigantic, because it's not just going to be some chairs in a room with a projector. It's becoming more like a Hollywood style production with extra video screens, and it's going to be pretty massive. I don't want to I don't want to say too many things, but they're anticipating a lot of people in the room. So that's something you might want to be there for, because they're going to try and do something really snazzy with their Wednesday presentation. I think their goal is to kind of make it one of their biggest presentations ever. So just a little tidbit for you there about Adepticon. Let's see, this is Adepticon 2020. So for us, this is year 13. Yeah, it's our 13th Adepticon. Hard to believe, actually, and it's the first time that I've taught classes, or just official classes, at Adepticon in probably 6 years now. I see we've added some extra highlights in here. Yeah, we've got let's add some somewhat brighter highlights here on our horse. We haven't done that on this side. We did on the other side. Just finding a few places here. Now, I see the belt doesn't really have any kind of shape on it. Here's some of that wildwood. Let's go back to that. None of these straps or belts have any real shape to them, so we need to give them that. Real quick. And then we'll go back in, do some extra little shading and some lights on those too. There. That's a little... we got one more to do here. That's better. And then I'm going to get into my horse here and start to add some darks onto that, because we've done the light part. We've been adding lights. Let's add a few little darks in here. Because all this time we've been trying to really work our way around this as a whole, not just little bits and pieces, just paint the face and then not touch anything else. It just really makes no sense whatsoever, because you'll have no context for your lights or darks. You'll find yourself going, oh yeah, well that face, that's not quite dark enough, because next I did it next to black primer or next to white primer or whatever. Here, let's get some more darks in here, and now let's add some blue in a few areas here on the horse, because hey, blue horses make sense. And it's just going to be little touches here and there. Okay, another area where some blue's got to be reflected down here. I hope you can see that. Let's get some here. Let's do a little more crazy blue reflections in our gold there. And then we're going to tone down some of the blue here, where maybe transitions got too harsh, because we can do that. A couple more here even on this part of the horse, and then we're going to go back to that darker, the wildwood there. Sorry, I haven't looked at the chat in a while. Oh, let me see if I can scroll up a bit. Ah, here we go. So, oh, hey, Laurent, how's it going? Oh, thanks a lot. This is me trying to finish off my Easterlings so that I can actually, hopefully, play a game of Lord of the Rings at some point this week. There, see, we're going to let some of that work its way into the fringe there, too. Sorry, I missed your thing there. Oh, yeah, I'm wondering if the only way to get that Sauron figure is in the stupid fine cast stuff. We haven't. I can't remember the last time I touched that. Probably sometime in 2012. That's a few years ago. Oh my goodness. So I'm gonna scroll back down there. Oh, hey, Wargaming Lobby, how's it going? Yeah, she was kind of substituting for the rest of the More Than Dice crew there, doing her thing, and I heard her mention you. I was just about 3 feet away, painting a bunch of chibi figures and other Lord of the Rings figures, while of course having some football on. It was a glorious weekend of college football while I was painting. That was kind of nifty. Usually not treated to that many top 10 matchups. So here we're going to work ourselves in, start to work in some. This is where I talked about using some of the thin down contrast paints as those final glaze possibilities, like right in there. So we used the wildwood and all that initially for doing a lot of darker glazes on the horse, but now we're bringing it back and we're starting to use it for some final glazing. So hopefully, can you see that? Yeah, see that blue? It's right over there. That was just, I was really hoping that was going to work. Now here we're going to take some of the purple and the wildwood. I suppose I could just use my Shyish purple, but at this point, I don't want to have to be grabbing more paint. So we'll just mix those two together because I need a really dark color there. And we're actually going to try and get a dark here. Let's flip this over. We need to do a similar thing up here. Like so. Oh, I know he's we paint as a family. Oh yeah, that was me waving to you there. I was trying to drop off some little stream critters for Kathy there, so she could have some company with them. Usually I try and sneak underneath the camera, but you were too observant. You caught me in the act of trying to sneak some things onto her table there. And actually, believe it or not, she is the one that started the whole miniature painting thing with some Lizard Man Blood Bowl figures that I had here. And they weren't painted. She said, "Wow, do you mind if I messed around with them?" I said, "Well, sure, that's fine." And man, she was having so much fun. I said, I gotta try this too. And I'm sure you've probably heard her tell the story of how she said, "Look, my brother told me that miniatures can be addictive." And I said, "Oh, come on. Whatever." Yeah, right. They're not addictive whatsoever. Oh, we have a Gary in the house. 4 a.m. What is sleep? It is 4:01 a.m. now here in Wappleville. which means, oh, in Germany it must be 10, and in London it's not. No, no. In London it's not 10. I think in Germany it must be 11. And in Melbourne it's got to be 6 p.m., I'm thinking. Might still only be 3 p.m. in Perth. No, that they're only no, they might be 3 hours behind. Don't mind me while I play guess the time zone. Yeah, a few extra lights there. This is that same. That's the clear blue and the clear phthalo blue, and we're just trying to work in some of the same stuff that we've got here. Oh yeah, Wargaming Lobby says, thank goodness Kathy dragged us into the hobby. Yeah, it's well, I was doing the 2D art at the time, and there was just a whole bunch of crazy things that happened, and the 2D art business just sort of went away, and it left us with painting the miniatures. And I know to this day people will ask, well, do you miss doing the 2D art? And I say, well, actually, not really, because I paint way more now that I do miniatures, and I get to paint oils again. So to me, it's all win 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 with the miniatures. And oh, I get to actually take guys like this and hopefully play games of Lord of the Rings with them this week. It's kind of hard to do that with paintings. So to me, I didn't think I would enjoy this as much as I did, that's for sure. Well, and two, we live in kind of a golden age of miniatures where you got Green Stuff World making the texture rollers, Wicked Elf making, well, and Secret Weapon making all the neat basing stuff like the vellum butterflies and everything else, and the vellum plants, the crushed glass snow, all the stuff that I utilize. So here, see, did that thing here with the blue on the underside of that. Perth is 6 p.m. now. Sydney is 9:02 p.m. Monday. Tokyo is 7. Yeah, see, I haven't, I'm going to have to start guessing the Tokyo times also. Now, I have it on my phone, but I'm not allowed to cheat doing that. So, here we go. Yeah, there you go. 3 time zones on there. But yeah, that's cheating if I use the phone to to guess. That's not really guessing. There. Let's do a couple of dark blue glazes here if possible. That's that phthalo. There's a little bit of the Leviathan blue. Just working up a darker version of that here. Gonna throw that down into some of these crevices. Up into here. A few other places I wanted it to. Yes, over here. And we're going to take some of this almost like a pinkish red here. I've got my straps that I want to get a little extra color on here. It's ever so slight. It's not much, but just enough to get those to stand out. Some on the boots here. Yeah, this needs to. Now this right here needs something. Now I'm gonna see what happens when I take the wildwood here and let my white mix with it. That should make an interesting little brown there. And then, can you see that? I think so. Just hit it our The banner pole here. It just can't be, doesn't have to be super, super shaded, but it just can't be that dead, non-existent shading. Gotta do something on there. I am gonna actually take this mint green and mix it in there to make it even a little bit different. Just get some separation here. I'll take some more of that. This could be an interesting color. Maybe I'll get some of this on the horse too. On his tail, perhaps. And boy, just 1 a.m. in Alaska. That is so many times I've had to say, what is it in Trevor time? Because I always keep thinking of the 2-hour difference, not that extra hour there. And, well, my brother's on that same time. Well, unless, no, in Denali they have to also be on the same time. I know that's more central Alaska, not exactly on the coast. Let's see what happens. I'm going to move my water here. I just need a spot on my palette to work with here. I think as far as, when you find certain colors that companies make, the mint green, it's one of my, I don't know if I have a favorite Reaper color or something like that, but it's one that I use a lot. Now, it's not really the same type of color, but in the Creature Caster, and Nestor knows all about this, that it's the faded ultramarine blue. They're just they're fun colors that even sometimes I just say, well, I can't really necessarily make that one too easily, so I'll just use that one. Okay, this needs a couple of these right in here. So again, we're trying to find these really bright areas because it's now we're in a safe place to be doing these. We've done a whole bunch of the miniature here. We're getting into that area where we can start to play with some of these much brighter highlights like that. Let's see what we can do on some fringe here to make some of this stand out, but not too much. Aha, we need to get some more action on the other end of this. We got a light here, but the fringe around it is dark. That doesn't make much sense. 1 hour behind West Coast and 1 hour ahead of Hawaii. Okay. Yeah, and I'm always thinking of Hawaii as being much further behind, but not really. It's just more south than it is west. Oh, and Wargaming says, I also love mint green. Yeah, it is. Bang. Yeah. It's one that I use a lot in metals. I use it in skin tones. Holy smokes, it's kind of something I use in a lot of everything. There's another highly technical term there. I use it in a lot of everything. Well, I think now you can tell that it is 4:10 a.m. here. And I think I've been awake for at least 20 hours now. At least, maybe 21. As we're just trying to now work in a couple more lights here. Yeah, Wargaming Lab, I was kind of hoping that every time she mentions you, I think, oh man, I'm not gonna be able to catch him here because the time that I do my stuff is so much later than hers. Well, it's kind of partially by design. We can't both be on at the same time for, well, bandwidth reasons. And also just sound reasons because I could easily, I don't know if you could almost probably hear on camera in the basically the next room only about 12 feet away tops. All right, we got our blue over there. See here, I'm liking that green, but I gotta actually brighten that up a little bit. So let's, I'm gonna throw out a little more of the clear yellow here. Yeah, let's just get some of that out there. Want to make a more intense green because, green goes with gold naturally. And let's just pop a few little lights there, and then we need some greens here on our banner. Again, if this gets a little off camera or something like that, I apologize. It's a wee bit on the awkward side. It's basically the reason why it wasn't part of the army painting tutorial, because it was just too darn difficult to get on screen with, I don't know, 12 other miniatures as I was working my way through those. So yeah, and it's working its way across the screen. Oh, let's see. Wargaming Lobby is shopping for brushes now. So it's technically the best time for me. Yeah, well, I figured I would go with this until somewhere in the neighborhood of 4:30-ish or something like that, as long as my brain can take it. Because we're getting really much further, actually even further along than I thought I was going to get with this, which is nifty. Okay, so here's something too. Now we got our blues. I need to get actually some purple into this blue because we got all these color transitions everywhere else, but the blues, I don't want those to get too static. So I'm just doing a few little changes to those. And now we've got this, remember our little crazy strap color here. Almost forgot we have a couple of these straps to deal with. Now let's see if we'll use our mint green to see if we can't get some highlights on those straps. Oh gosh, I don't know. It'll be some point this week. Could be Wednesday. But actually, the person who taught me Lord of the Rings, Rich, he has invited me. That'll be Waleed and Rich and I hopefully doing some Lord of the Rings. The target date is Wednesday. Well, it would be more nighttime because Kathy's doing her stream. But we'll see. I'll know more. I think I'll probably know more on Wednesday. Since it's technically Monday, I guess. Well, not technically, it is. There is no technically. It actually is Monday. So let's go back to that Wildwood, some of the Leviathan blue. We got ourselves a dark again, and we're gonna mess around with some parts on our horse here. Oh yeah, the chibis that I was working on here. Let me see if I can grab a couple of those. I'm gonna try and actually do a Patreon video on these. So this is the My Little Scythe game here. There you go. Been working on those guys. I think there's 7 of them. There's 2 each, and I think there's 7 different characters. And I guess it's like the Scythe board game, but for kids. And it's a commission thing that I'm doing. One of, a million different things. And I was just gonna, since I've never actually done any sort of chibi things ever, I thought, well, I should turn those into some kind of a recorded lesson for people as I explore that part of the miniature world. Are those paint tools, are they all individual? Oh, they're actually, I just got them on Amazon, but you could get them, any kind of art store should have them. Here, no, those are cough drops. Yeah, I was just got them on Amazon. There was something like 40 or 50 of them in this package. They're just cheap little plastic things. Well, obviously, I'm sure they're probably coming from China or whatever. But they're really handy for either the Green Stuff World intensity inks, the contrast paints, anything that, well, as you saw, was really liquid like that, because it keeps it from just kind of going all over the place, and it keeps you from potentially spilling a very expensive container of contrast paint all over the place. So again, just working in some darks here. Yeah, that the horse now that has sort of the variety of colors that I was looking for. I can see the greens in there. I can even see some purples in there. There. Now that it's almost about 4:20 or so, and I think I've been at this for 3 some odd hours, at 2 hours and 41 minutes. Yeah. That's not too shabby. That should get the job done for at least for tomorrow. We'll work on it some more. There. And like I said, I can do any amount of refinement that I want after the fact. I talk about this all the time on the Army painting series that, paint a little bit or whatever. Take them off whatever you're using to hold them on as you paint and play a game with them. Then take them off of those, or put them back on your things and paint some more. That's what I did with my first Lord of the Rings armies, for sure. Not too fast. I tend to use the stainless wells. Yeah, these are just cheap little plastic things. And now I found I wasn't really able to scrape the dry paint out of there like I thought I was going to be able to do. I tried doing that earlier tonight, and that didn't really scrape too much of the paint out. So here's some of that purple now on the underside of the... I know this is real dark here, but I got to reflect that purple onto the underside of... right there on the underside of my helmet. And now we're going to get some of that purple onto the horse, because purple on horses is a natural thing, of course. All right, couple more touches. I can see my green in here. Actually, we will do a quick little gemstone thing up here. Yeah, let's not have that only be solid white. So see, we got a little transition to it there. And let's see if we can't have something that's really bright on the bottom side of this, or some yellow, some of the orange, as those are the clear paints. Yeah, there we go. And what the heck, I want on the fringe there, maybe a little lighter. Maybe a few touches of orange on my armor here too. Just to liven that up. So I got the blue right next to the orange there. Some orange there. Maybe even here. Yeah, a couple touches of the orange there. Ah, I see that the banner fringe could use a little something there. Don't want it to get too boring color-wise. I almost went into the down into the depths there and added this like white to those sword blades. Well, that wouldn't have been the most fantastic idea ever because it's supposed to be dark down in there. But this is also supposed to be lighter, so we are gonna get some of this green going in here. Can you even see? Oh, it's right here. Helmet there. Ah, nice. Really wanted some of that. And now over here on this side of the helmet, it needs more than just a dead color. There's some little bit of orange popping in. Now, maybe a little edge light here where the eye is. And then, yeah. Couple more lights there. So we've got all kind of, we got reflected light on this. We got so many different fun things going on. All right, well, what I'm going to do is just call that one Feeny for now. Well, let's put some, see if I can't sneak the eyes into this here. Just a couple little dots here. There's one. There's the other one. All right, well, I just want to say thanks to everybody that was watching this. Fruity Toots and Wargaming Lobby and Trevor. Oh, and we had a Gary. And we had Bethany in here. Oh, let's see. And Laurent was in here too. And Tyler. And Mr. Interesting. Oh yeah, and Paul and Ryan who were in here early. Much appreciated. Glad that okay, I did catch some of those questions. Oh, and Will, who was here very early. And just doing my little thank yous here and everything. And we also had Boulder Shoulders. Yes, that was a name. We don't want to forget that. And Jared, of course, definitely another early person there. Jared and Paul were really in here early. And first last. And first last just got some Bone Reapers. So I'm sorry if I missed anybody there. But thanks again for everybody that watched. So here's we now have them on foot and mounted. So we're hopefully ready for some games to be played. And I'll catch you again on the next stream as soon as I can. See you later.